Hello everybody, this is Big Steve 101 with my new top 10 list series. We're going to try and post one of these top 10 list videos once every week. Every Friday we should get a new video out there to you. We're going to cover topics in sports, wrestling, comics, movies, television, whatever I feel like that week, whatever's caught my eye. Today's list and our first episode will be all about current superhero TV series. Which 10 are the best? Let's find out. Alright, we're going to jump right in at number 10. We have the series Supergirl. This series features a classic superhero in the form of Kara Danvers. This endearing classic goody-goody hero is something that we don't have a lot of in today's comic books, with things getting a little bit more dark, a little bit more complex a lot of times. She's a throwback to that good versus evil day where you always felt good rooting for the hero and there wasn't a whole lot else going on. Kara is a great character. She's equal parts vulnerable and human, showing off what it means to be hurt in relationships, as she is alien superstar who can just beat up anybody. And despite the fact that Melissa Benoist as Kara steals the show every single week, they've managed to develop a really great support cast, including great characters like Wynn, Lena Luthor, John Jones, Alex Danvers, Mon-El, and Jimmy Olsen. They're all interesting, they're multi-layered, and they're generally pretty likable, and it keeps the show really fresh without ever stealing Kara's thunder or reducing her importance. And her relationships, especially the one with her sister Alex, are super dynamic and are just as interesting as any villain of the week that this show's ever made. Coming in at number 9, we have Legends of Tomorrow, one of the most overlooked and easily the most unique series in the entire Arrowverse. Legends follows a ragtag crew across space and time and really helps us get a chance to dive into some of those fringe characters of the Arrowverse. For example, this series really allowed Leonard Snart to grow into one of the most likable protagonists in the entirety of the Arrowverse. However, this series drops a little bit down the list from where it could be because it didn't really find its stride, I don't think, till season 2. With the introduction of Legion of Doom and the move to put Katie Lotz' very interesting and likable Sarah Lance character at the forefront of the series. Arthur Darvill's character, Rip Hunter, isn't bad, but he's a bit smug and off-putting, and can be a little bit hard for the audience to take in large doses. I think moving him to a side role has helped his character quite a bit. And one thing I can honestly say is a major positive for the series is in season 3 we're still continuing to get better with them diving into the backstories of the crew, great understanding of who these characters are and who their families were, Rory meeting and finally understanding why his father is who he is, going to the past, seeing what caused his father's PTSD is definitely a series highlight so far. Coming in at number 8, we have Netflix's first appearance on the list with the show The Punisher. It's a gritty series that continues what Daredevil was doing, looking at what kind of psychological and emotional damage, PTSD, it would take to create a man like Frank Castle. It's an interesting series that also introduces the classic Punisher sidekick Micro, who's a bizarre yet driven hacker whose only goal in this series is to do enough good that he can get out from under the shadow organization following him and get back to his family. It makes Micro very likable, and it's also a good way of showing how someone could end up with Castle. How damaged would someone have to be? What kind of trouble would they have to be in to turn to someone like Frank for help? The series also takes time to deal with the serious issues of gun violence, poor military health care, and general corruption, and in a way it's done that's equal parts comic book and exciting with explosives and nonsense, but serious gravitas as we see the ill effects of these systemic problems affecting the individuals, not just directly, but others around them when they snap or things happen to them. The show talks about these systemic issues, but it doesn't break them down in a simple guns bad, guns good type of way. It really lets you think about the answer, which I think makes for much better series and much better writing. Coming in at number 7, we have Arrow, the start and center of the Arrowverse. Still the strongest show, in my opinion, of the entire Arrowverse. While some people are kind of hostile to the fact that Oliver is still trying to learn how to trust others after all these years, I think 6 years in, we've become fully aware of what happened to Oliver in his exile, and once he came home, it's honestly a miracle the guy is alive, much less that he can function enough to be mayor or raise a kid. So I think those people kind of need to take a step off and remember that even though it's a show, there are still some parameters. It does a phenomenal job of reminding us constantly that just because you're a vigilante doesn't make you a hero. They're not the same thing. In fact, Oliver's even admitted to liking the violence when he was talking to Prometheus. That was a series highlight, and it gave us some real insight into the mind of the type of people that would go stalking the streets for villains every night. The show also features great performances by Willa Holland as Thea Queen and David Ramsey as John Diggle, two of the best and most interesting characters on television right now. This show was once the standard bearer for all superhero television, but it's aged a bit, and it's starting to settle into that good show but not great show territory. I think this show still has a little life left in it if the creators would just trim some of the fat, something they had a good opportunity to do at the end of last season and they didn't capitalize. I really think that they got to cut down the cast somehow, some way this season to really save any future for Arrow. Coming in at number 6, we have Daredevil, the flagship show of the Marvel Netflix verse. A gripping story about a man who's deeply religious lawyer by day and a vigilante by night. A show that beautifully mixes Charlie Cox's charisma as the blind lawyer with the brutality of the modern superhero genre. Everyone remember that fight scene in the hallway? Of course you do. That was frickin' brutal. A supporting cast featuring just about every major player from the Daredevil canon. You know, Karen Page, Foggy Nelson, Elektra, The Hand, all those guys are here. They represented Kingpin. It's kept the show grounded by having a lot of people. It feels like New York, while also giving us a sense of wonder with him being a vigilante jumping off rooftops. Murdock has always been a very good character that's equal parts capable of deep and complex stories as he is silly superhero nonsense. So, obviously no talk about the Daredevil TV series would be complete without us addressing the most brilliant actor in the show. Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. His character arc and backstory scenes explaining his usage of the same cufflinks because of his father are brilliant. Everything he did in this show was just nothing short of phenomenal. Coming in at number 5, we have Legion. This is by far the most bizarre series on the entire list. The story of David Haller is complex and twisted and deals with the impact of mental disease in a world of mutants and superheroes. I'm not going to break down too much of it for you because I would start to confuse myself. But really what it does is the entire series does a great job of misdirection, giving you false leads that do eventually point you closer to the truth. Aubrey Plaza especially is excellent in her various roles related to her true Shadow King form. Her bizarre otherworldly vibe generates genuine fear whenever she's on screen. And when she enters David's thoughts, she is downright terrifying. Dan Stevens excellently portrays the splinter in David's thoughts as he's trying to determine whether all of this is real. Is it a delusion? Does he have powers? Is he crazy? It's really good. We get to know a lot about David in Season 1, and more importantly, we also learn a lot about his delusions and how they impact the people around him. An old school Mindbender style series with just the right amount of action and some really neat breadcrumbs you can pick up on second viewings to accurately kind of learn what was really going on. It's a great series, fun to watch. Coming in at number 4, we have Luke Cage, the story of an escaped convict with unbreakable skin and superpower. He's trying to lay low in New York. This is a visually stunning show that gives us a chance to see both the grime and filth of the inner city and the light and glow of the inner city party scene. A lot of scenes take place in bars and clubs. It's really great to see that dichotomy there. Luke Cage also rises up this list for its great soundtrack. The music's superb. You can watch this show simply for the music and you won't be disappointed. And the music's just so well prepared that it fits both the overall arc of every episode, but it also is just compelling to listen to on its own. And the villains in this show, top shelf really. You have the shifty, kind of untrustworthy Shades who's doing a lot of background dealings, Black Mariah, the corrupt politician, and the wannabe Dawn, Cottonmouth early in the season. they're really down to earth villains that you can get behind the street level hero fighting. There's also some great side characters like Bobby Fish and Misty Knight that help make the world feel very full and vibrant. And the explanation about Pop's barbershop being neutral ground and them just waiting so well to pay off when the gunfire finally breaks out through Pop's. You knew it was coming. It was telegraphed the entire season. But it was just so well done that you really couldn't have guessed when. It was a phenomenal build to a great moment when, unfortunately, we lost Pops, who in his own right was a pretty great character. Coming in at number 3, we have Gotham, which it's debatable as to whether or not superheroes actually factor into this series. This procedural drama about Gotham City pre-Batman, though, does tell incredible stories about super villains and how they came to be. Special shout out to Robin Lord Taylor's Penguin, who has become the greatest anti-hero on television today. Witty dialogue, incredible sense of humanity in the way he both cares about people and is willing to manipulate any of them. He seems very real. And he's a great character because he's always one step away from being a Riddler level genius, as well as being one step away from Joker level insanity. He kind of walks that very thin line between Jesus and insane, more so than any other character. He's both intelligent enough to create great strategies and emotional enough to fall down off of those. The show also gives you empathy and every reason to root for him, who has, Penguin's killed more people than most other TV villains, yet he seems like the type of character that you should be behind. A more believable and complex Jim Gordon, a Harvey whose bitterness is more well understood, and a Bruce who's trying to find a positive way to work through the emotional trauma, not just put on a bat hood and go beat the crap out of people. The freedom that they have to ignore the source material has really allowed this show to grow and make its own characters, which I hope get their own interpretations later on, because the Gotham of this series is one I'd like to visit again, maybe in comic book form. Coming in at number 2, we have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This show has received almost universal praise since its mid-season 1 twist about Hydra being a secret organization inside S.H.I.E.L.D., following up on Captain America, Winter Soldier very well. This show gets a ton of points for its incredible durability and ability to reshape itself. What was once a boring villain of the week show about spies trying to find enhanced people evolved into a legitimate spy thriller about rooting out the evils in your own organization. Then the show was almost X-Men-like, with the few season arc about Inhumans and their rights and how to treat your fellow man. And after the show did that, it turned into a sci-fi drama utilizing the idea of LMDs and the framework. The show's dabbled in the occult with Hive, they've been to space, they've dealt with magic, and recently even time travel. The show is great because its core concept is fluid enough to always evolve. However, most importantly, I think the dynamic of May, Coulson, and Quake is the best trio in the Marvel Cinematic Universe by far. I think that Clark Gregg and Chloe Bennett may be the first 2 people in the history of Hollywood to pull off the surrogate father for orphan girl thing without it coming across as incredibly creepy. Their relationship is incredibly interesting, and you just gotta love Quake and Coulson and how far they've come over the course of this series. Before we get down to number 1, we're going to go over a couple other superhero shows you should be watching. The Flash, it's comedic. It's got a simple villain of the week formula most of the time. Yes, there's overarching villains, but most of the series still follow a villain of the week idea. And it's a good enough formula that it really covers up some of the other holes and mistakes that come through that show. The Runaways on Hulu, a good, if not exactly faithful adaptation of one of the best comic books going right now. If you haven't read the Runaways comics, go read them. Watch this series. It's not the most stunning thing in the world, but it's interesting. The characters' motives are interesting. I really like the Runaways, and I hope that this series gets some more seasons from Hulu. Alright, Black Lightning, I'm going to have to admit that I also need to start watching this series. I haven't been able to catch up yet, but critical praise is showered over this show. It's got a strong cast, and it could be a fresh take that this genre really needs, because it's a little oversaturated at the moment. So a fresh take would be a great change of pace. And then finally, before we get down to number one, we're going to talk about some of the things we should all be looking out for in 2018. If you're a big comic book fan, these shows should at least somewhat pique your interest. Cloak and Dagger, new show, high hopes for that. It's always been a very interesting set of comics, two very good characters. Yeah, the previews make it look a little teen drama-y, but I'm willing to give it a chance if they're willing to eventually get to what makes those two characters so great. Following up on that, we finally get Young Justice Season 3. Two great seasons already in the books. Interesting, compelling, cartoons for grown-ups kind of series feel. A lot of complex concepts and interesting thoughts. Glad to finally see them getting this put together. And then finally, we're getting a New Warriors series. Now, I'm not really sure what to make of this. New Warriors are kind of a comedic thing in some circles, but, you know, I think it's just important that we note that the same year that Young Justice is returning, the MCU is getting its Squirrel Girl. So if you can't get excited about that, I don't know that you actually like comic books. And finally, after much stalling, we get down to number one. It could only be Jessica Jones. The show's amazing. Jessica's always been one of the more interesting and tragic characters. She's kind of a classic Greek, in this case, heroine. You know, tragedy strikes, but it doesn't destroy her. No matter how many good things seem to get for Jessica, the world always seems to find a new way to shit on her. Don't believe me? Watch season 2. Despite that, she remains relatively objective. In her rare moments of sobriety, she's very clear about what she wants and what her goals are. By all rights, she should have quit, but she knows that doesn't really help, and so she tries her best to move on as best she can. Ritter's depiction somehow perfectly blends Jessica's sarcasm, charisma, bravado, and ludicrous strength with the sadness and vulnerability in a way that makes you both hate her and want to hug her all at the same time. I think choosing to replace Captain Marvel as Jessica's best friends with Hellcat, aka Trish Walker, has been hugely successful, because you can have the former child star abuse mirror some of the abuse that's happened to Jessica. It creates a understanding that makes the character dynamic very good. They respect each other. They understand everything that's happened to each other. The villain, Kilgrave from season 1, David Tennant delivered a master class in acting. He was the lowest form of scum when he played the MCU's version of the Purple Man. Jessica Jones versus the Purple Man is a great rivalry. Jessica Jones is the story of someone with intense personal demons who sees others suffer in the same way she suffers from Kilgrave and tries to save them despite not wanting to be a hero. She helps Malcolm get clean. She breaks Kilgrave's hold on so many people. This show is relatable in that idea of not wanting to be the guy to step up but not really having a choice sometimes. Gotta love this show. Gotta love Jessica. Kristen Ritter, A+ work on this. So that's it for this episode, man. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Please leave comments. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm right. I would really like the ones that say I'm right. Tell me what else you want to hear about. I'd love to hear from you guys. If I don't hear from you guys, I don't know what to post. And then I look weird and I get all sad. So please tell me what to post. And most importantly, someone remember to post that I'm first comment. Because if that doesn't happen, who's going to know who was really first?